Hello and welcome to the Blues Focus channel. Today we're joined by Omer from That Millwall Podcast. I joined their live stream the other day, had a good chat with the lads. Highly recommend checking out their channel. How are you anyway, mate?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, not too bad. Thank you. How you doing?
Good, yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Apart from my team, but we'll get on to that. This is a brand new series that we're bringing to the channel called Opposition View. That we're just going to get in contact with fellow opposition fans for upcoming games and just get their thoughts on their own season and what they think of Blues and whatnot. So should be good. Hope you enjoy the first episode. Right, let's get straight into it. So overall thoughts on Millwall season so far.
Uh, about the middle of the road, to be honest. I think we came into the season with a lot of expectation. Obviously, last season I think we finished 8th or 9th in the end, and had a sniff really of obviously after the project lockdown came back, so to speak, or the project restart. Sorry, we had a chance of kind of sneaking into the playoffs at the time. Probably, Rowett's first season with us, so to speak. He joined in October. He kind of overachieved, I think, maybe looking back with hindsight. And then going into this season, there's a lot of hope and anticipation around the side, really, with the opportunity maybe to kind of kick on a bit more. Because if you look at our division, I think it's kind of taken that way. You got a few big sides, and the rest is kind of up for grabs, so to speak, in the middle of the table anyway. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we started off okay. We're in games, we compete, and it's kind of the same story for us. But we're just a draw specialist, really. I think we've drawn almost half the games we've played this season, so it's not too pretty to watch, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's even when Rowett was with us, it was never pretty football. Especially nowadays, we wouldn't mind it because at least we wouldn't be where we are. And I particularly miss the Rowett days just because, yeah, it was grim football, but we were punching at the playoffs. Like we were closest we've been for a long time. Felt like we were finally on the up, rebuild. But then the new owners came in, and that's that's where that's got
To
us.
distinguish it, I don't need to see like pretty football, like much along your lines there. Like as long as we're Mills, I think Mill and Burnley have kind of almost got a kind of similar sort of ethos, really.
Yeah,
Just hard working sides, players that have got a bit of talent about them, but as long as that they're putting their 100% effort in, and you can see that they're willing to try and at least do things to kind of contribute. That's all we're asked for. I think we went through a spell when we played you in November where I think we drew like 7 games or something in a row or something
yeah,
along those lines. I can't remember the exact number on the top of my head, but defensively we're solid. If teams put 2 or 3 past us, they're normally a good side to do it, and they deserve to do so on the day. So you won't really catch too much on off day defensively. It's just going forward, it's been a bit difficult this season. But saying that, the last couple of games, things have changed a little bit, and I'm quite confident, to be honest, going into Wednesday's game.
I don't blame you, mate. But yeah, no, completely agree with you. And I think I'd love to have a rock like Jake Cooper at the back at Blues, to be honest.
He's immense, honestly. He's a handful as well. And I think, his output for goals has not been the greatest this season, but he's just a constant threat, to be honest. In both boxes, along with Matt Smith when he gets a game. When you get
Yeah,
the two of them on the pitch together, it's carnage in the boxes normally.
definitely. I think I remember 2 seasons ago, I think it is now, Jake Cooper scored against Sheffield United.
Mhm.
Um, and I just remember seeing that passion and that kind of love for the Millwall fans in particular, getting involved with the fans and stuff. I just felt like we really missed that kind of desire at Blues.
You give me
Um,
goosebumps a little bit there, to be honest, because that's like one of the away games that actually sticks in the memory. Like
yeah,
he jumped over the hoarders, didn't he, and come and joined us in the crowd. And missing football a lot, obviously, nearly a year now since I've seen Millwall play, which is bizarre, but in itself.
mm,
But yeah, like that sort of like you're right, that sort of passion, and like Cooper is that sort of character. Like I think he's just bought into what Millwall's all about really since joining.
exactly. I think that's all you can ask for as a fan, really. That kind of passion and desire. And I think Millwall and Blues are two very similar clubs. Working class
Mhm.
fan base, and all you ever ask for is that kind of just that 100% effort all the time. That's all. It's all you want. Win, lose or draw, just so long as you give everything. So no, I definitely see that in your side, like I used to see it with Rowett at Blues. So yeah, don't see that anymore though. So who do you feel that we should be looking out for at Millwall? Like who should we look to kind of neutralise as a threat?
It's a culmination of players, really. I think we play a formation where we play 5-3-2. I'm not entirely sure whether or not he'll go for it, to be honest, on Wednesday. But it allows the likes of Jed Wallace to play further up the pitch, and I think Wallace is our talisman, really. Last season he got 10 goals, 10 assists, and he's not really touched that same level this season, so to speak. Like, he's still our top goal scorer, I think, in the league, and he obviously is our main output, so to speak. And he's sort of a little bit of a mini resurgence in this formation where he's allowed to play next to Ken Sahor up top. I don't think Sahor will be fit for Wednesday because he went off injured on Saturday. But I think Wallace in particular, he's a sort of player that likes to kind of get forward and obviously cause havoc, really. And if you give him the free license to do that, he can be a handful for teams.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was last season, Jed Wallace went on that kind of amazing run of games where he was banging in free kicks, long shots and whatnot.
Absolutely.
He's definitely a threat, and I think, moves maybe elsewhere up to the Premier League have always been rumoured around him occasionally. Do you think personally he'd be able to make that step up to the Premier League?
I do and I don't. I think it's a tough one because he's not technically the greatest player in the world, despite obviously the fact that he's, our main player and makes stuff happen. I think he's on 6 this season.
Yeah.
I'm just checking it now. He's if you leave him on the right hand side and be direct, and he's a brilliant runner, he'll keep taking players on, get to the byline and put a cross in. He's that sort of classic winger. With us being, going through a creative kind of lapse, so to speak, you'd see him drift inwards and try and make a lot happen for us, which is fine, but it kind of takes away from what I think he's best at, and that is just keeping to the line and obviously taking on players, knocking the ball past them and just kind of, in that sense, kind of have that rawness about him. I think, if you compare him to maybe where he could go in the Premier League, I personally do think he could maybe play for a Burnley side or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Not to discredit, not to say he's not talented enough to play for other sides, but I think he's a hard worker as well defensively. And I think, I could just imagine him sitting in on the right-hand side of a Burnley side. That's, kind of capturing a similar sort of, style of how we play, I feel like.
I feel like he'd be a good Sean Dyche player, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I can fully imagine that. He's one of them kind of classical wingers that you don't see too many of nowadays. Very retro in the sense of his style, hardworking, will take things down to the byline and stuff, and just has that quality in big moments where you need it.
Definitely. Yeah, and even he does pop up with a free kick, like you say, and obviously if it's on the edge of the box, 9 times out of 10 you fancy him to at least hit the target with it. So it's almost Ronaldo-esque how he does his run-ups. So it's always, obviously Ronaldo's coined it nowadays, but yeah, he's definitely looking from a dead ball.
Yeah, no, I'd love to have a player like Jed Wallace at Blues, but we just don't. I suppose next, I'd say favourite memory playing against Blues.
To be fair, we've been spoiled in the last couple of years away from
you
home. I think we went 43 years or something along those lines without winning at St Andrews, and I think it was something along those lines until we played you, I think, on a Tuesday night. And I think we mentioned it when he was on our show the other night that you mentioned. And Diego Fabrini played for us, and I think he tore you lot a new one that day. He didn't actually score, I think, but I think Alan Dunn scored that day, and we won 1-0 on the night. And then a couple of years later, we came back up there and won 2-0 when Tim Cahill came back. So we've been quite spoiled. And obviously, Sean Williams scored that rocket that you cited the other day as well. So I do like going up to Birmingham. It's obviously you probably got the bragging rights over us for that playoffs in 2002, weren't it? So for that, that's obviously Birmingham's always one of those sides that we've got a little bit of extra incentive to get one over, I think. But yeah, recent times away from home, we've seemed to have just kind of turned up at you a lot, so it's always good.
Yeah, I do tend to dread when you lot tend to come to our place. One thing I do love though is I've always said to my mates whenever I've been asked, like, if there was one fan base you could jump in an away end with for one day, I always say Millwall, because I just feel like it'd be an experience I'd like to kind of feel.
It is it's an acquired taste, I'd say. Like, I think, you have the elements. I think we have about, you say 1,000 like loyal supporters that go week in, week out, but then when we seem to go up to Birmingham, you always get the extra few that kind of go up to come to St Andrews. So it is that kind of draw to it. So like in that sense, like the away days normally at St Andrews are always quite lively for us.
Yeah, I was going to say I've never seen, I suppose, limbs or bodies quite like it when that Williams goal went in. Just the thing is, you're all sat quite high up, and you're still tumbling down those stairs, and I'm just like, that's a long way down.
We're not treated to many Weldy goals, to us of you. So that was like, I think from 30 yards out, he just picked up and just hit it, didn't he? I think. And I think it caught us all by surprise at the time, to be honest with you. And it was, one of those celebrations that you have to kind of be in it to experience it, definitely.
Definitely, yeah. And I think obviously with the Mill chant, you either like it
Mm.
or you hate it. I think for most fan bases, I personally quite like it. I think it's a bit different, and I think it's always funny, if a side kind of equalises or is winning, they'll start kind of doing their own rendition of it. I know
Yeah.
we started doing Burr um, when we equalised against you, but I just think it's one of them chants that's it's just good laugh, good, really
Yeah, we've had it
engaging.
all back to us. No one likes you. You don't care, whatever, or no, whatever. Like all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Or no one likes us because we're shit. I'm not sure if I can swear on your podcast, so I won't do
No,
that.
it's fine. Feel free, mate.
But
We swear regularly.
just wasn't sure on the house rules there. But yeah, no, I
No,
think
that's good.
we get a lot of stick, obviously, because the Millwall's got that kind of reputation from previous years gone by and stuff. But I
Yeah.
think we really don't give it a toss, to be honest, when we do come up to these places and get that stick. We really don't. And I think that mere chant is like it's a kind of, when it gets going, especially like in the away games, like you mentioned, it's kind of often when we're under pressure, even in the big home games, and we're known for our giant cup killings in recent years. But if we have a
Yeah.
full den backing us and like we're under the cosh a little bit, just getting that chant going, and like it can go on for about 5-10 minutes sometimes. It can kind of
Yeah.
absorb and you see the players start to rise to it as well. So like you talk about kind of having that element of a 12th man, so to speak. It
Mm.
definitely has that effect, I feel like, especially on the big games at home.
I can imagine. I remember watching that Everton game, the FA Cup game.
Yeah.
That was mental. From kind of a neutral point of view, I thought that was a great game to watch. I feel like there was another one that you had at home in the FA Cup that was really good. I just
We had
can't
a
remember.
few. We had one against Leicester City where we was down to 10 men. You mentioned Cooper,
Yeah,
he got sent off that day. And Sean Cummins, of all people, a right back, pops up. I think his only goal for Millwall in the 91st minute with 10 men against, and then Leicester were the champions at the time as well. So
yeah,
that was like, there's a video going around of like Leicester fan filming it from their away end, and you can just see the absolute scenes. I think, the only downside to that goal was, and especially the Everton one as well, we played goal music, which we've stopped doing now. It was the
have
Let
you?
Them Come song. Yeah, we stopped, because what happens is you play that and then like, so we score, and within 2 seconds you lose that kind of the raw emotion behind
Yeah,
it. So like I feel like goal music definitely I'm not a fan of personally.
I
Like
hate
to
goal
miss the
music.
moments. It's
I
like
hate it. To be honest, Millwall's goal music wasn't the worst I've heard, so I think that's why I've never really been too bothered by it.
yeah.
It's something different as well. But yeah, no. I also remember that Brighton game in the FA Cup as well.
Mhm.
Um, I'm pretty sure they equalised at like the death or something.
Yeah, it went
Um,
to penalties that day, 2-2. David Martin, who's now at West Ham, who was a West Ham fan as well, like our
yeah.
backup keeper, he let one in at a far stick and never been forgiven since, to be honest.
I'm not surprised, especially that what when he went on to play Chelsea away,
Yeah.
um, at West Ham. I think he made his allegiances quite clear. He's West Ham
Mhm.
through and through. But I
I think
think,
his dad played for West Ham in the past and stuff like that.
yeah,
So like he was a proper West Ham fan by nature, which obviously whatever, but just obviously that mistake cost us massively. I think it was the quarterfinal of the FA Cup at the time as well. So
yeah, something
would have
like
been
that.
nice to get to the semi-final that year.
I was gonna say, I remember years and years ago you made it to a semi-final.
Yep.
Can't remember what year it was. I'm trying to think.
2013 against Wigan, who they went on to win it that year against City in the
Yeah,
end. But and we had the 2004 Cup final. So we've been, I think, from 2004, I think we're like statistically the best team in the FA Cup out of the Premier League. So that's obviously something quite nice to
that's yeah,
hold on
something to be
to.
proud of.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely can't say the same. But I mean, we did win the League Cup in 2011, which I wouldn't change
Of
for
course.
the world. That was something special. Um, but yeah, so where do you think Millwall will finish this season?
Ooh, if you asked me a couple of weeks ago before we got the last two wins, I would have just said like lower mid-table, and I would have been happy with
Mm,
that, to be honest. Like we went through that bad spell. I think we only won one in 16 or 17 since like October onwards till the new year. But having won the last two against Sheffield Wednesday and Reading away, and especially the manner of the wins as well. Like we've gone down
yeah,
in both games, but we've come back, and that second half against Sheffield Wednesday was electric. And it wasn't like, I'm talking about like no talent, so to speak. It was more just sheer determination to put that game to bed, and we did that
mm,
day. And I think, especially the Reading game as well, we made a couple of changes at half time Saturday, but we just kind of gave it our all. And I feel like the players have kind of gathered together, and there's a kind of momentum behind us. And I do think we're I'm not going to say we're going to get the playoffs, but I do think we're an outside contender to
You've
try and
made
sneak
late
in.
runs before,
Absolutely.
definitely.
So, I mean, I'd be happy with mid-table, and I think that's probably what I would have said to start the season as well.
Yeah.
But a part of me is hoping we sneak into maybe the top 10 or so and see where we're at come May time.
Definitely. I think you'll either be high mid-table, or even if you built up a really, really good run, there's no reason why that side couldn't make playoffs. I think over the last few years, you've definitely been in and around it at times,
Mm.
and always a bit of a dark horse. Because it's a good squad on paper, a hard-working squad, but it kind of reminds me of Lee Johnson at Bristol City. You're either in
Right.
really, really good form or just awful form.
There is no in
Um,
between. That
no
is
in
true.
between. Yeah,
But I think, yeah, it is. I think that's me looking with my rose tinted glasses, and I'm always the hot cup half full kind of person with Millwall,
mm,
especially. So the reality is, we probably lose to you boys on Wednesday, and then I'll go back to regressing to kind of going mid tables all right this year anyway. So it's like
yeah.
in the games we're expected to win, this is it now. So we've got Birmingham, I think we've got Wickham to come, Barnsley in the next few games. So like they're the games you should be hoping to perform in. And
Mm.
typically for Millwall, we don't really kind of grab the games in them sort of manners. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Rowett's biggest problem down at Blues was he'd always beat the big sides.
Mm,
He'd struggle every time against, your Barnsleys, your Rotherhams, the
that's it.
smaller sides in the league. He always struggle. And I just think, how come we can beat these massive sides, but we just can't beat the little ones? Because if we
Mm.
beat the little ones, we'd be in the top six.
That's it.
So
But it's exciting though, because like there is a part of me that's still hopeful that maybe towards the end of the season fans can start to go back to games. And if
yeah,
I tell you what, if especially if like we're allowed a somewhat near full capacity, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it could happen. And if we're in touching distance of those playoffs, that then is going to be rocking. Not only because obviously people
definitely.
have not been through a year, and every other football club's going to say the same thing. But if there's an outside chance of us sneaking into the playoffs, like I would really fancy us if that was to happen.
Definitely, yeah. And I think just kind of segueing on from that, a good question I was going to ask you was, I
Mhm.
was speaking to a former Blues player the other day, Martin O'Connor, who raised the point of he believes that some championship clubs are benefiting not having fans. Would you say Millwall is a club that's benefiting or not benefiting?
I would say not benefiting at all, to be honest. I
Yeah.
would say because I think a lot of people said obviously the teams are suffered about their fans, but we don't play pretty on the eye football that is suited to a behind closed doors game. And I
Mm.
think the transition, especially the manager says it a lot as well, and it's no excuse because everyone's got the same like circumstances. So I'm not going to for 1 second say it's an excuse, but I do think especially last season when we came back, like we beat Forest 3-0 before lockdown the first time away from home. Matt Smith
I
scored a
remember
hat
that.
trick. And like it was honestly an amazing away day. First half it was 3-0 up. I couldn't believe it. And I was thinking to myself,
Matt
like,
Smith on it.
yeah, that's it. And I was thinking, part of me thought, like, if this continues and we don't get shut down, the den's going to be rocking every week. And there is a real possibility we can sneak into them playoffs. And a similar thing to now, to be honest with you, how I said that just earlier. But I think, behind closed doors is not, we're sort of side that likes to play on the front foot and try to get up in people's faces. And I think that's what they've tried to recapture the last couple of games. And,
Yeah.
that whole kind of determination, they've got to kind of work for it themselves instead of having the fans to bounce off. And I do think, not having fans at the Den has really killed us. And I would say it, but I do think it affects us more than maybe the likes of, the pretty footballers, like the likes of Norwich, Brentford, Swansea,
I
that
was
are
going
all
to
up
say
there.
Brentford.
Because they all play nice football, that they play teams off the park. We don't do that. We won't have more than 50% possession in probably 75% of our games this season. It's just, we kind of thrive to play on the counter. And if you're at home, give the players the extra yard by just, giving them that kind of G up, really, I think. So
Yeah.
I do think we've been hit harder than maybe some other teams in the league with no fans.
I can definitely second that. I feel like we suffer the same, particularly away from home, because
Mhm.
our home following over the last few years has been really on and off. Like it's either really good or it's really poor. But ticket prices keep going up at St Andrews, and it's a shame to see, really. But away from home, we've always taken big numbers. Really, it's rare that we don't. Think the last time we had really, really poor away following was a Tuesday night game at Middlesbrough. Um, that was right near Christmas time a couple of years ago, but that's the worst I've ever seen it. But we were in bad form at the time anyway. So no, I think we missed that kind of away drive fans wise, home wise too, but definitely more away.
I think
Um,
definitely our home for us. It's more the away form has not been so bad. We've drawn so many games away from home, and we don't concede many. It's just the home games where we've just not really had that, cutting edge. I think so. For us, it's
yeah,
definitely hurt a lot by not having fans at the Den.
the Den's an intimidating place. I honestly think it's probably the most intimidating ground I've ever been to as a fan. Easily, I don't,
It's
I'd
because
say,
Birmingham's got that little bite to it. When Birmingham comes to, like I said, when we go to Birmingham away, the same thing when Birmingham comes to town. And there's
yeah,
only other select other teams that are like that. I'd say maybe Leeds is like that, and obviously, local derbies are one thing. But Birmingham, Sheffield Wednesday, we seem to have a little bit of bite to it as well. It's just there's always a couple of teams that when they come to town, it's always a little lively.
yeah. I think it's kind of down to that kind of bigger clubs that have kind of had a hooligan kind of
Mm.
past. And you definitely get that with Blues and Millwall, Leeds as well.
Yeah.
I find football hooliganism really interesting. I like watching sort of documentaries on that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so no, I do think a lot of it kind of derives from there and the culture. But they're also very big working class clubs as
That's it.
well. So yeah, but no, just finally, what are your thoughts on us really on Blues?
To be honest with you, when you came on Friday, it made me check your form just to check it out and see what you boys have been up to and stuff, just out of curiosity. Because I know Karanka arrived and like there was a lot of hype, wasn't there? I
There was a
suppose in
pause,
the
yeah,
close
big
season,
pause.
yeah. And then I see your form. I think it was from like December onwards, and I was thinking, cool, what's happened here? Like, I was really shocked to be honest with you. I didn't expect it. I know he signed a couple of players where like the likes of Clayton's and obviously friends, players that he'd had before and stuff like that. But you do have a few select players in there that the likes of Hogan and stuff that I would personally like to see at the Den and always have thought that. But
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just not worked there, has it? By the looks of it for him.
no. I mean, he's virtually given up now after what he said on WM the other day. He said on BBC WM that he believes it's impossible to get out of relegation right now with the way we're playing and can't see a way out.
Oh
I've
wow.
I've never seen a manager or heard a manager say that publicly before,
Mm.
virtually condemning his team to relegation before the end of the season.
Hmm.
Um, so no, whether that's to kind of get at the players to get them to try and change, I don't know. But it definitely sounds like it's not going to be much longer before he
I think
goes.
his reputation's nosedived, hasn't it, since Middlesbrough? And I think he was quite fortunate to have quite a few decent players at the time there, and obviously got to
Yeah,
the Premier League. And then Forest, it didn't work out for him. And obviously, judging at how it is now for Birmingham, I guess I know fans not being there might not help as well, but I think his style of play is just kind of getting sussed out a little bit. I think, and
definitely.
it's a bit like Mourinho in the sense, obviously he used to be his
Mm.
assistant as well and stuff. You just think, I don't know, maybe time's ticking on their kind of credentials a little bit.
One hit wonder for Karanka, really, I think, is kind of how it's starting to look. Because obviously he did have good players at Middlesbrough.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember, he ended up sacked for a week at
Yeah,
Middlesbrough.
I do remember.
And there was always rumours of him being a bit of a control freak and
Mhm.
having his issues. So how that's maybe rubbed off on the squad, whether he's done anything like that that we don't know about, because the club is very quiet. Like the players are quiet, the people working at the club are quiet, but that's because the people that have worked there for the last 20 or so years have been sacked by the current owners and they've brought in their own businessmen. So that's where the club has particularly lost its soul, and I think that's why you're seeing us where we are now because it
You have invested as well quite a bit, I feel like.
exactly, yeah,
In the last couple of years in particular, I remember when you signed the two Brentford boys and stuff like that. And I was thinking, like, you're kind of giving it a go a little bit, that Maxime Collin and Harley Dean. You look at them and think they're quite decent for the
yeah.
championship as well. And I
We got
think Harley
hotter
Dean,
as well.
yeah, that's it. And like you're thinking you're spending a bit of money here, but maybe the money wasn't best spent on them, I guess. I don't know, or you could have
No,
spent it in other places of the squad. But you do look at Burnham and think, some of your players are probably, just not really performing to their price tags.
no, definitely not. Particularly Harley Dean. He's come under a lot of criticism this season because he's club captain. I think we
Mhm.
just expect more. But there's the recurring joke of he just cares about posting his dogs on Instagram rather than what really happens on the pitch. But no, we made some good signings this season. Neil Etheridge in particular, what a goalkeeper! You look at when he was in the Premier League with Cardiff, he was on the brink of a big money move when they got relegated, but then obviously he got injured, fell behind Alex Smithies, and we got a bargain in the end. But even our mentality is starting to rub off on a player like Etheridge now, and we're starting to see that. And same for George Friend, quality when he turned up, but now he's just become like the rest.
I think you had that scenario as well not too long ago with like the goalkeepers, right? We had like 5 goalkeepers or something. Did I
Yeah.
imagine that? And he was like, you're paying them all on your payroll and stuff like that. So I do think like sometimes I do question. I don't know if that's the same ownership as you have now, but you do look at Burnley sometimes. I think like it's a bit of a mismanaged club a little bit sometimes. I think there could be a lot more to come from them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we spoke to Lee Clark not long ago, and he would talk about how he'd been sent through fax machines, recommended lineups by the owner.
I
And
see.
I'm sorry, but that's that sort of stuff that's just not acceptable. You employ a
Mm.
manager to do his job. You don't tell him how to do it. But we've just been controlled by those sort of control freaks over the last few years, and I've always complained about EFL fit and proper checks, to be honest. But that's a whole different topic.
I see.
But no, just kind of wrapping up, I suppose. Just thank you for coming on. It's been great hearing an insight from kind of, more of a neutral point of view on Blues, but also to hear what it's like on Gary Rowett's side, because a lot of Blues fans, you either like him or you hate him, really. It's definitely that. Actually, just quickly before we wrap up, how have you found Conor Mahoney and Michael Kieftenbeld?
Keith Bell at first, obviously, we've only seen for a few games. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people weren't sure when we first signed him because we've got X amount of midfielders already, and we've got that sort of player already, so to speak. But I think Rowett was quite a big fan of his, and obviously decided that he
yeah.
wanted to get him back again. I don't know if he tried to get him maybe when he's at Derby or Stoke. I read somewhere. I'm not sure if
Derby, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate, but yeah, I know he's a big fan of his, and you can see what he offers. He's a hard-working midfielder that
Mm.
likes to tackle. I think he got booked within like half hour of his debut for
He
us and
did,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
against
Yeah, so like,
Watford.
and I think he left the foot on him big time as well. So like that instantly would have, if that was a full den, would have wowed the fans and obviously embraced that
He'll
kind of.
fit in well at
That's
Millwall.
it. And I think Mahoney, I'm not sure personally. He blows hot and cold way too much for my
He's
liking. A
so on and off, yeah.
bit like Mason Bennett, who we've got, who scored on the Saturday, a great header, and you're thinking, okay, what's he going to do now? And he might get his chance to play probably on Wednesday night, and probably won't even see him in the game. To be honest, I think Mahoney's a bit like that. He's been unlucky with injuries, and you can see there's a player in there. A couple of goals he scored for us,
Mhm.
you're thinking outrageously good, and then you're like, but it's few and far between, really. For me personally, you look for players to kind of take the onus away from the likes of, Jed Wallace to try and obviously be a bit of a creative outlet for us on the other side of the
Yeah.
pitch. And he can't. I don't think it's either he doesn't like the responsibility of it or to say, all right, you're a good player at this level, sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think Conor Mahoney was loved at Blues in his loan spell, and we were gutted that we didn't sign him permanently. But
Mhm.
he was very on and off. Like when he turned up like he was a game changer. But then there'd be games where he just wasn't there at all. You wouldn't have noticed him. But he can be quite dangerous when he cuts inside from the left wing and just as a go.
That's it.
Um,
And I think you can see that about him, that he has got it in his locker, which is a disappointing thing, really, because you're like, if you've got it, keep doing it, or at least keep
yeah,
trying. You can see when he's having an off day or when he's not feeling it, like he doesn't want to pull it in. And it's like, sometimes you have players like that, and sometimes you rely on them to obviously provide the magical moments, but he hasn't really done it for us just yet. So we'll have to wait and
yeah.
see.
Definitely. No, that's been great to hear. But just a big thank you for coming on. And I reckon the fans will have enjoyed the insight just to hear it from somewhere else
No.
rather than my mouth every week. So, yeah, no, thanks, mate, for coming on. Really appreciate it. So that's the end of the first episode of Opposition View. If you liked it, please drop a like. Go check out our Patreon page. Bluesfocuspodcast.com or bluesfocus.com either. Just go check them out. And yeah, if you liked it, drop a comment. Definitely go and check out That Millwall Podcast. Proper banter on there, good laugh, few drinks and whatnot. It's a good podcast. I highly recommend. But thanks for joining us and keep right on.